It's 3 minutes after the hour, so why don't we go ahead and begin the meeting. This is a called meeting by Health and Welfare, also sponsored by the Mayor's Office on broadband. Just let me say that we're meeting virtually because of the fact of the COVID-19 pandemic. And today's meeting, just be aware that we'll take no votes. There'll be no deliberation on a decision. So just to get that on the record for the county attorney as well as for the public when this recording is posted. The other thing I want to remind folks of, we'll be talking about this at the next regularly scheduled Health and Welfare meeting, which will be August 4. It probably will be a Zoom meeting, and that will be at 6 p.m. And we'll make that announcement a little bit later. I also want to alert you to Thursday, August the 13th, there will be a Zoom meeting by the City Council to actually have this on their agenda as well. So you can go to elizabethton.org and find the access code if you would like to listen in on their meeting as well. I know that Mike Simmerly, Kurt Alexander, and others would appreciate us coming on board and listening to what they are presenting as well. So as we all know, and I appreciate other members who are not on Health and Welfare, Commissioner Woodby, Commissioner Travis Hill, for joining us and showing support for this effort. But we know that broadband access in our county is lacking. We saw that as the Carter County schools particularly dismissed over COVID-19, and many students didn't have internet access, save alone broadband access, and I don't see us surviving without that. We experienced that at the Boys and Girls Club as well when we went to virtual programs. Some of our members could not access the opportunity to keep up with their reading or math or other skills, so it's become a real issue. It also plays through economic development. As many of you may know, if you've been reading the paper, which I'm sure everybody has, that been a number of articles out there about individuals in concentrated population areas looking for somewhere else to go. And most of them are looking to rural areas. And I think as an economic development piece and a small business piece, broadband is going to be a part of our ability to attract folks. On Health and Welfare, Commissioner Mike Hill has been a loud voice in this, and I think I'm going to turn the meeting over to him, and he can introduce our guests and provide any other commentary he would like. So, Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Chairman. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for doing this on a Friday morning. I think that's Ms. McCrae from the Chamber. Glad you could make it. Also, Mr. McLean from the school system. I've invited you guys as potential puzzle pieces in this equation going forward. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Brent Keith from Skyline Skybest. And Edward, I can't remember your last name.
Henson.
Thank you. Anyway, the name tags aren't working so good right here. These guys were kind enough to conference call with me a couple of, it's really seriously not showing up on my machine. I don't know why. But they were willing to conference call with me a few weeks ago and agreed to come in and give us kind of an introduction to what we're up against if we're going to try to go for some broadband grants and some connectivity. Mine and Commissioner Woodby's district is particularly in a pickle, as over half of the households with school-age children do not have adequate connectivity to do distance learning programs in the likely event that they're going to go back to that. So, Mr. Keith, this is the group, and welcome, and I sure do appreciate you doing this with us.
Yeah, certainly. Glad to be here.
So what are we up against? how many broadband grants has Skyline Skybest actually been participant in?
Oh gosh, in terms of awards, we've participated in a lot. And that's part of the thing. Is doing the research, putting everything together, and certainly applying. But we've had an excess of $28 million for one grant that helped us really get some legwork going on bringing fiber to the home. And for those of you who are not familiar, I guess I should back up and say, not familiar with Skyline. Skyline started out in 1951. The people in our community, our headquarters in West Jefferson, North Carolina, in Ashe County, people in our community got together and said, look, no one is providing telephone service to us. The larger companies, they don't care about our rural areas, so we need to do this ourselves. So community members got together, got some loan, got some money, pulled things together, and formed Skyline Membership Corporation, Skyline Telephone Company, in 1951. From there, that evolved down the road through other products and services, not just telephone, and to where we are today. We have a for-profit entity, SkyBest, so you see the names together, Skyline, SkyBest. Skyline is the parent company as a not-for-profit cooperative. Our flagship product, if you will, is broadband, fiber-based internet. In the areas that we serve, in our incumbent areas, we are fiber to the home right at 100% of the incumbent areas that we have. SkyBest is our for-profit entity that allows us to go out into other markets and be the CLEC, the competitive local exchange carrier, and take those unregulated products and offer those in markets. Just be competitive, have a business. So we take all of our products and services, and we offer, of course, from telephone to phone systems, security, video, cable TV. We have our own local channel that's in our markets, and we serve South Carolina, North Carolina, and Tennessee. Not the whole states, just part of it, specifically the more rural areas. That's where our focus is. That's where we've had success. So we continue to bring things out. And the good thing about our model, and I didn't get on the call and to tell you everything that we're doing, but I did want to give you a little bit of background. We take all the monies as a cooperative that we generate in revenue and put that what we don't give, we reinvest that back in the community through broadband expansion, through support, academic scholarships, athletic grants, support for just about everything. In the areas that we are, where we have our service, you can really see our name that we're present. Through this COVID time, we've given free internet service installation to families, to students. We've done a lot in that regard. We're still working on it. We don't know what the next stages and phases, and even when we figure out the phases, what is that really going to mean to each one of our households? So we're working really hard to expand, and we expand two ways, through organic growth, and then part of that's also through acquisitions, where we purchase other companies and take our model and build it out and help expand those communities and support economic development. So one of the biggest things that we know is the economic development tool and is broadband. And it used to be that you could, when someone was looking for an industrial site or wanted to start a business, tell me about your water, power, and sewer. Now the first thing is, on this call, you guys know the impact of it. Tell me about your broadband, because we're going to get water, we're going to get power, we're going to get sewer. I need high-speed internet. I need fiber. If you can bring me the fiber, then we have something to talk about. And if you don't have those things, you're probably not getting in that discussion. So we certainly understand the importance of that. We've applied for numerous grants. We've made, a lot of inroads and continuing to do that. What we're seeing now is a positive, and I'll give you a highlight on the call, is you're seeing, because of COVID, you're seeing a heck of a lot more emphasis on broadband. It's really come to light what we all on this call understood. We need broadband, especially in a rural area where we can be competitive, where people can work from home and do the jobs that live and want the quality of life that we have in our beautiful rural settings. So I do see where there's a relaxing of some of the qualifications, but there's also some accountability. Some things that we experienced in Tennessee is, funding that was used, or funding that was given and not used appropriately. and that was not unique just to Tennessee for broadband related services, but across the country. So the agency started looking at, okay, where's the accountability? So if we're going to give you money, if you're going to qualify for these USDA grants or, whatever the, ARC grants, what have you, there's going to be some more accountability on the end of it. So you're going to have to tell us after a year how many customers you added. You said you were going to add 1,200 customers. How many did you add? And then there's follow-up after that. So we're thankful for that. That way people, you can be good stewards of the money that's being loaned out there. And that's what we're trying to be, is cooperative. We have to make sure that we're good stewards of the revenues that we generate. Yes, there's a great demand everywhere for broadband. We live in a very underserved area in all of our areas, and we're trying to make that, we're trying to change that. And part of that is in our incumbent areas. So, we're very fortunate. We have, fiber that's not available in gigabit internet speeds today that you can't get in Charlotte, you can't get in Miami, you can't get in bigger cities, you can't get in Raleigh. So we're able to have that, and we want everyone to have that if all possible. That's how we lay out our infrastructures with fiber. We don't believe in investing in yesterday's technology. A lot of the grants that are out there now are given extra points or given preference if you can, the higher broadband speed that you can offer. The fastest available certainly is through fiber, and we've understood that, and we've been doing that over 10 years. We've been putting fiber in the ground, and it's paid big dividends. So I said all that to say, in my long-winded way, there are a lot of areas that are out there, and I'm in quite a few meetings like this in multiple states where communities like yours, you said, we got to do something. We have to stay afloat. Our kids have to get educated. Our parents now are home with the kids, or going to be home with the kids. They need to be able to work. If they have a child that's younger and there's no affordable or even no daycare available, what do? I can't work. I have to stay home with my child, and I have to educate them. I can't just stay home with them and babysit them. I have to educate them. So that story is unfortunately way too common. So I've spoken with Mayor, a few times, and we've gone over some things as well, and we've been kind of on and off with conversation, looking at what we can do there. I know Mr. Hill, we've done had some conversations as well, and I've shared some information. I don't know if any of you have how much of that you guys have. Certainly can get you more information of examples of counties like yours and what they're doing to try to attract broadband providers. As you know, the national providers, I didn't get on a call to bash. I'm not going to do that at all, but the national providers just have a different business model than us. I'm not saying their business model is bad. I'm saying that a publicly traded company is beholden to its stockholders. So why would you invest $1 million? And quite frankly, $1 million in fiber infrastructure doesn't go a long way. We do know it takes you to the future and beyond, but $1 million doesn't go a long way. So if you're a publicly traded company and you invest $1 million in a rural area and you pick up 2,000 customers, that would be great if you could do that. But if you pick up 2,000 customers, that's all you get for $1 million. You take that same $1 million of infrastructure and you put in a highly dense area, highly populated area, like a expansion of Charlotte or expansion of Raleigh or Cary or some of that area, you're going to pick up a lot of customers and a lot of potential, and which means more revenue. So you're a shareholder, you're an investor. Why did you spend $1 million to only pick up 500 customers when you could have picked up 5,000? You don't know what you're doing. You don't belong here. Those sort of things. It's a business. The business model is different. And for us, our goal from inception was we were created to help meet the needs of our community. And that means filling the food pantries, and that means supporting the schools, and that means, and how we do that is through our services, telephone, broadband, video, mainly broadband. We were, Skyline Telephone Company, but now, we broadband, as I mentioned earlier, is our flagship product. So all that to say, we understand it's important. I have samples from other entities like yours who have brought in representatives and support to try to build out broadband, and I can share more of those. I think the mayor may have some of those, but to give you an example, I mean, we're asked all the time for calls like this and to go out and serve. You know, we are the largest cooperative in North Carolina. We're 6th or 7th, roughly, cooperative of our type in the U.S., but we're still small. Our total employees, including part-time, which some are seasonal, is just below 200 people. So we have to do a lot with a small amount of people to serve the areas that we do. Very streamlined. But we do get asked a lot, and we always want to talk to folks and see where it makes good sense. We do strategic partnerships. We're looking at partnerships with electrical co-ops. We look at partnerships with really about anyone if it's a way for us to serve more people. That's our mission. So I shared some information from Polk County. These are some North Carolina counties, but from Alexander County and in North Carolina as well, and then from Watauga, and what information they gathered to help providers like us say, okay, this is an area that we can afford to do, because we have to be good stewards of our money as well. Because if we make a bad investment, then we're not supporting backpack lunches for kids, so they can have a decent meal at home, or we're not being able to give academic scholarships so they can go and get a better education. So we have to really, really be mindful of those things. An example, we're looking at different areas of Watauga County. Broadband survey there said, these people, here's what we surveyed. We did public service announcements, and I have samples of all this that I'm happy to share with you. This is what working documents that you can copy and put your spin on them, and here's what's worked. And so those results come back and says, okay, this is an underserved area, this is a served area. Here's the people on this map that said we don't have service, even though a national provider says they serve us. We call them and they won't give us because their nodes are full. They're not going to expand. Why are they reinforce or rebuild their infrastructure or overbuild it with today's technology when they're making cash off of what they did, 25 years ago? But taking all this information, we look at it, and like, for example, Watauga had one specific area that was had a fair amount of people in it. 91% of the people there said, hey, yes, if you'll bring this service here, we will sign up. Here's my name, here's my email address, here's my phone number. Keep me in the loop. We want this. So when you look at those things for a company like us, where we still have limited resources, and then we're trying to support more resources and get more funding through grants and then through our own investment. If you look at an area that's got 65% versus an area that says, hey, we've got 91% of people that would take your service, then we have to look at that. And sometimes we make a strategic decision to help expand, and that's based on a lot of different variables. Every situation is unique, but the information that we look for is, okay, tell us about your vertical assets. Do you have cell towers available? Do you have, water towers even? What does that look like, and how is that mapped out? And what are the community surveys saying? I mean, we know at the end of the day, a lot of people used to be more so, people say, oh, I'll take broadband. I want broadband. You come to our area, I'll get it. And then you go there and you build it, and then they end up not doing it or going to another provider. We're not seeing as much of that now because the demand's real. It's not a nicety. It's not, hey, can I get my Netflix because that's my favorite show? No, this is how I'm going to put food on the table. I have to have broadband. This is how I'm going to educate my kids. So as resource documents, I can certainly help you with some of those. I don't know how far you are down the road of, I know you have the health and welfare committee meeting. It sounds like there's a couple other committees going. That's certainly every county kind of does it a little bit different. I've been fortunate enough to sit in on a lot of different meetings in different counties to see how those structures are set up, and they each have their own nuances, what works best for them, and the whole thing is about winning as a community and working together to provide the broadband. We have interest in that. I'm sitting here with several on my desk right now that we're looking at and we're trying to do. we do organic growth that's contiguous to the areas where we serve today. That makes it easy for us, but it doesn't eliminate the fact that we could go somewhere where we don't serve anywhere close to today, where it makes good sense, because we also look at those sort of things. I mentioned earlier about part of our growth strategy is through acquisitions, where we buy other companies. We bought a company in Loretto, Tennessee. Now that is near Florence, Alabama. That's an hour and a half on the other side of Nashville. That's worked great for us. We're expanding. We won $1 million grant there last year, hoping to win. We applied for $2.2 million there, I think, and we ended up getting $1 million. So that expansion's on the way. We're going to apply for a few more million over there. Tennessee, I can tell you, Tennessee gets it. The state gets it. They really do. You're fortunate. Ken Ray's on the call. He can tell you a lot about that as well, I'm sure. But North Carolina struggles with certain things at the state level. They got a great grant, which is really, really good. They've removed a lot of barriers through the North Carolina Department of Infrastructure and Technology, NCTIT. They're doing a really good job. They're getting it. We struggle in South Carolina. They don't have an official broadband plan for the state. Virginia does not have an official broadband plan of the state. As of 2019, going into 20, they were working on it. There were plans. But when you're looking at USDA grants, just to let you know, just for an example, everything's rated on points. And if your state doesn't have a broadband plan that supports your efforts, you don't get those points. So now you're competing against, you look at $600 million that are out there, but $600 million across the United States is not that much money. So to get your piece of the pie, you need to have the states that have specified broadband plans that qualify for the USDA. And to my knowledge, USDA is the biggest pool of money today. ARC has some great programs. We have great contacts over there. It doesn't fit all the areas because it's the Appalachian Regional Commission, but they do have some funding that's fairly easy to get a hold of. It's just not in big volumes like the USDA. So all that said, but I do know Tennessee is continuing to appropriate money. There's lobbying daily to try to get more money, and it's working. We can attest to that as being a recipient of some of it. So we do have some, even though it was for our Loretto telecom property, it's the same approval board that would be for Carter County as it is for, over there. It's a state, there's state funds out there. So anyway, I know I'm long-winded. I tried to get everything that I could, kind of get you up to date in all the little areas. This thing changes daily. So, we have a lot of information, but there's a lot more out there, and you have to really stay in the game, because it just changes, and it's a lot for all of us, I know, and it's frustrating. And you all, I applaud you for being on this call and caring to be a part of representing your community and trying to make a difference. I know that comes with a lot of ridicule at times. It's not easy being in the positions that you're in, or going into meetings like this where there's going to be the trolls and the haters out there, but you're doing the right thing for your community. People are going to do and say what they want, but they'll be using the broadband if it's out there. So anyway, that's in a nutshell, and I apologize for hogging so much time, but that's wanted to give you all of those things together.
Okay, thank you, Edward. Who applies for these grants? I know you have, as a company, applied for several of them. Who would seek these funds, and how can Carter County position itself to become sexy to an organization like you to make you want to actually go for funds and do a deployment here, do a project here?
Well, a lot of it is in the research, and some of the onus of that is on the county. I mean, we look at the areas that we serve today, we know very intimately. I mean, we know the officials. We're elbow to elbow with the commissioners and the mayor and economic development, the chambers. We're engaged and we're serving on those boards. That's what we do. We get involved to really get an unbiased opinion of what's going on in the community and how can we serve and how can we make it better and support. I mentioned earlier about the size of our company. It sounds like a lot of people. It's really not. It's small for what we do in scope and scale. So we have to look at the projects. We can't do all the legwork. At one time, we were going out and doing the legwork. When that started in '51, our citizens in our community, said, "Hey, we need to be served," and so they went out and they did the legwork and they put it all together. And 3 years ago, we were doing more of the legwork still. We're like, "Oh, we want to put broadband in your county. Can we do this?" We've done these. We pulled these resources together. We've done the studies. We've done the engineering studies. And here's what we think we can do. Would you guys support and be in approval with us to help us do this? Now we don't have the luxury of doing that because everybody is in that boat. Every county is struggling with broadband nationwide. And there's demand from the suppliers, the equipment, not to mention, a lot of electronics come out of foreign countries. So there's a struggle there too. And we try to navigate that. And we've done a really good job with that as well. But to answer your question, Mike, we're always interested. We always want to have the conversations. That's what we feel is our purpose and mission. We can't do every project, so we have to really pick and choose. Part of it is getting, if some counties do it all internally. Some counties put together some funds and they hire resource people who understand GIS mapping and they understand the marketing, if you will, of creating the proper public service announcement that leads to a broadband survey, that gets the data, that gets the information. And I can tell you, commissioner-wise and economic development and, our local councilmen or aldermen, whatever way the town is structured, it's so key to get those folks on board. And not everyone's going to agree on everything, but you got to agree, on the thing that, what's the bigger picture? Put my ego aside, put the ulterior motives aside, or is our goal to serve this county? Because the bigger picture is better education, better future, better jobs, the whole 9 yards. Easy to say, real dang hard to do. I mean, I get it. It'll be hard for, as you've probably had the conversations with national carriers. It's going to be hard for them to really do a whole lot. Good people. I know a lot of people that I worked for Verizon for 8 years. I know all about it. But I couldn't make the decisions even there that I really always wanted to because I had to, meet those profit margins. I had to have certain density for things. And our mission is, to serve those areas that no one wants to serve or no one else can. And we did that even to the fact where I mentioned telephone service and certainly fiber optics, but with cellular service in our areas, parts of this part of North Carolina anyway, there wasn't adequate cellular service. So in 1994, we went together with a couple other companies and we formed Carolina West Wireless. So now if you're in the high country and you are using Verizon service, you're not. Your phone may say Verizon, but you're using all of our towers. Verizon uses our towers, and they don't have any of their own here. So even though they have stores and those sort of things, it's still using our service. That's a big part of our business. We supplement what we do through the wireless side, sometimes with fixed wireless, and as that technology develops, that's an alternative way to get service quickly via the cell service and hotspots. And again, that technology is evolving. 5G is the evolution of 5G. A lot of people are saying they have it, and there's lots of different versions. It's like saying a chocolate cake almost. Everyone, oh, what kind of chocolate cake? Well, there's, whatever. There's tons of it. But that may have been a bad analogy. That's the one I have for it. There are different versions and people want it. You got the marketing spin on it too. Oh, our 5G does this. Our 5G reaches further here. The truth of it is that 5G is certainly faster technology. It is a fix. Right now, it's a temporary fix. It's more closer to a Band-Aid, I think, like fixed wireless is, but it's better than nothing. So if you can get 20, 25 meg on it, that's certainly better than dial-up or no service at all. In a lot of our areas, we're faced with the geographic struggles of the mountains. They're beautiful, but they're not conducive to good to cell service and signal to a satellite. So we're faced with all those things. But I would say that the first thing is that you really need to get a good listing of those assets. I have those templates from several different counties that I've gotten permission to share with other folks. as well. And it's what engineers have done. It's what local counties have done. Copies of the PSAs, copies of the surveys, what that looks like. Some, you know, what the heat maps look like when they're all said and done, of what service looks like, and what those definitions of those are, where service is, where service isn't, you know, all those sort of things. That helps us be able to sit around a table with our team and then my executive team. I did admit I'm the chief marketing and sales officer for the company, so I'm only one piece of the cog, for sure. So all these decisions are definitely not mine. We weigh them, and how we do that is like, okay, here's customer demand. Here's, you know, all these different categories that we look for. We know everyone wants it. Will they take it? How easy is it for us to get to? Usually it's never easy in the mountains to get to anything. And that's why we also do our deployments include aerial, fiber, and buried. Our preference is buried, obviously, storms and those sort of things. But when you're on a mountain, that rock's pretty tough. You can't bury very well in that. But in any case, so we have, you know, a variety of technologies to deliver our services, and that some of that is fixed wireless for certain areas. And but the primary purpose that we or function we like to bring all of our services across the fiber optic, because we know today we're offering symmetrical and gig. All of our services are symmetrical when it comes to that. But for us to go from 1 gig to 5 gig to 10 gig to 100 gig, all we're doing is changing the electronics on the end of the fiber optics. It's the same fiber can do all of this. So that enables us, as consumer demand continues to expand, it enables us to really be scalable. And if we're taking hundreds of thousands of dollars and invested it in the inferior technology that really can't make that upgrade, it's tough. We've had areas, I can tell you, it's dog eat dog for our world. We're trying to do the right thing. We're applying for grants, and somebody comes in and takes a $5,000 fixed wireless device, puts it on the chimney of a house to serve areas, and it blocks us from getting a $1 million grant because now this area is quote unquote served. You know, Tennessee is doing a real good job of understanding, hey, we're not letting this happen anymore. Just because a national broadband map says this area is served, we know better. So it's a lot more legwork on you. It's a lot more legwork on us to identify, you know, on Oak Street, 242 on this side, 244, 246, 248, they're all served. But on this side, 247, 245, 243, they can't be served because the node's full. But although the way it's been in the past, and I'm probably preaching to the choir here, the way the census blocks were done with broadband, with FCC, was if you served one customer in a census block, it showed the whole census block as being served, because ideally that provider should be able to serve it. Well, yeah, you probably could if you build out the infrastructure, and if you said, hey, we're not wanting to build out that rural section of this census block because it's just not enough customers for us. Let's move over here and cherry pick this area. Going back to all those things that I was speaking about earlier.
So Edward, that survey, then the survey becomes critical, because that's how you impeach the data that shows that an area is served, right? Through the information you collect real time from the actual residents, you impeach the government data that shows an area is fully served, that perhaps is only half served, half the residences on the block. Is that how that works?
That is absolutely correct. Well put. I will tell you.
We've got 5, I think 6 districts represented here. If we were to put a grassroots effort out to circulate a survey that I based on Commissioner John Welch's survey from Watauga County with some of the information you guys provided to me, if we were to circulate our own survey, I think we've got broader support than what's represented on this call. I promise you, there's probably a lot of folks that have work and other obligations this morning, but I think as a commission, we could utilize our existing network of communications and probably get that out pretty quickly Also, the schools, I invited Mr. McLean on. We can reach a lot of households with the most critical needs, I think, through the school system. But how many customers do we need to prove to you would be ready, willing, and able to become interesting to an organization like yours, sir?
Well, that's certainly a loaded question, but no, but I totally get it. And for us, you know, it's about the infrastructure. What's it going to take for us to get facilities to you? I can tell you in Avery County, something that we just recently did. We were awarded the contract for the wide area network for the school system. That enables us to reach the areas that are grossly underserved, or not served at all. So those type of strategic partnerships in Johnson County, in Mountain City, you know, where we're really starting to grow. You know, we were able to secure the contract with the county there, and so we have the phone system there. We provide the broadband that's expanding to some other areas from the law enforcement and those sort of things. All that revenue, we just take that back and invest in the community and continue to expand. So that was some help and support for infrastructure-wise. The reason why one of the primary reasons why we were able to expand in Mountain City, when there was other providers there that really weren't delivering the services, was because of that award of those contracts. You know, Shady Valley, they're 100% fiber to the home in Shady Valley, provided by us. Hard to believe, but very true. But that's what we do where it makes sense. No one else would serve it, so we didn't have any challenges on trying to get funding and all those sort of things. No one else wanted to serve it. So it's tougher for us when we have to go in and overbuild a provider, like a Charter or a CenturyLink or an AT&T. That makes it tough. I can tell you that, you know, that some of their employees, they understand it as well. I won't mention the company, but when we were looking at one specific USDA grant for a county, we had one of the national providers' technicians meet with us, come over to us, and take our map and mark off their facilities and said, "Look, we have notes here. Here's where our service points are, and they're full, and we can't serve. But I know you need this to take back to the USDAs of the world and prove that even though those companies, when you type in that address, says you can get service, when you actually try to get it, you can't. Or if you sell your home, the next person behind you can't get the service." So those guys they're people just like us. Some of their hands are tied. That's their employment, but they understand that, you know, it's not fair the way it's been looked at, and more people are looking at that. All that to say, it's hard to say, Mike. We need, you know, with us not being contiguous, we don't have services exactly on your border today, where we could just expand our fiber or put in a remote facility and expand from there. It really just depends. That's why we kind of need to look at the county as a whole. We have to look at some of the hot spots. If we can get some county support, and if that's part of the school district, or if that's and it can be financial support, not necessarily just broadband, but it can be from our hosted services, or, you know, any of that money that creates any of that service that creates revenue for us will make it more attractive to offset our costs to build. We're okay with a long ROI. We're really okay with not much of an ROI. We're a cooperative meant to serve, so we don't have to have the major margins, but we can't go and lose money. Then that wouldn't be a good stewards of our resources for our cooperative. And I know that's not really answering your question. It's a tough one, because we really have to look at the county as a whole. Where are the hot spots? Where can we start? Because if we can start in this one hot spot here, and we know this is a really demand area, well, getting here, creating some revenue, will enable us to get over here. So and that's part of the organic growth that I mentioned earlier.
Well, you guys are competing with an incumbent provider that is guaranteeing only up to 1.5 megabytes down, and not even a whole number up right now. If you call to sign up right now, if you can get on, that's all they're offering, and they've downgraded that from up to 4. So I think there are a lot of ready, will, and able customers that would spend a similar amount of money that they're spending every month now on something that, you know, really doesn't provide the opportunity to for a parent to work from home and a couple of kids to do distance learning, for example. And that's a very real situation in my personal household. If we were to advance a project here, what components do we need? Do we need to have someone to stand as a physical agent to receive grant funds? Who makes application? And we have the First Tennessee Development District also. I know you guys are in somewhat continuous conversations. What would their role be? How would this, is there a flow chart or a diagram of sorts of what this project would look like? Because we have had some fits and starts, but basically we're starting at ground zero right here, right now.
Right. It varies, and I know Ken can speak on it about the First Tennessee Development. But it depends. We've worked with groups where where we're the agents. A lot of them require a nonprofit or something like that to be a part of it to receive funds. In Avery County, I serve on the chamber board there, and we applied for a grant through the Appalachian Regional Commission. I went to the meetings, met with those folks in Asheville, and kind of got the ball rolling. Once we got closer to the deciding factor for the grant, then I stepped away from it because obviously I work for Skyline, and I couldn't be on the board and make that call like, yeah, Skyline should get that. They're good guys. We stepped back. We ended up, for that particular grant, we helped the county get that grant, but it was awarded to another provider. Part of it was because, and it was an area that we couldn't get to and serve. The grant was only for $100,000. That was not going to, when you look at fiber costs from $35,000, $40,000 to $75,000 a mile at times, depends on where you are. $100,000 doesn't get you very far. Fixed wireless technology, you can go and throw up a tower, you can get some service, you can get that Band-Aid on there. Now what you've done is you've now served an area with up to 25 meg, as long as there's not a lot of people sharing that bandwidth. That area is deemed at that point as served. So now I can't get the grants that I needed through the USDA to serve that area to bring them, gigabit technology or fiber optics. So you've removed them from the equation. So you put a Band-Aid on, yeah, you got some people some service today, but now that's what you've got. And the 25 mega today is that 1.5 that you're talking about tomorrow. And it's just not going to be enough. And especially now, the escalation of folks working from home, the students, all these models are going to change dramatically. And one thing that is for certain is that the demand, for more bandwidth is going to be greater than it's ever been. So Kim may want to talk about that. You can run through a chamber. Chambers typically don't have the expertise in technology and infrastructure. I happen to be on that one particular board, so I was able to lend some insight to that and what they should look at, how they should phrase and word certain things to make sure the providers are accountable. I'll tell you, they're running with that struggle now because what was promised through fixed, once they actually get the service out there, it wouldn't deliver. Some people have benefited from it, for sure, and that's awesome. If we can't serve it, let's help somebody who can. But I would say be cautious of that, just throwing good money after bad. I will tell you just another example. One thing that stung us. We were looking and we lobbied really hard, did a lot of work, spent a lot of money, engineering costs and all those sort of things, to develop a plan to build out a specific part of a county, and an official said, "Oh, this is great. It'll be even more great if we can take, if these companies start competing against each other for our area, they'll both run in there and try to build it out, and then they'll have lower prices because competition drives the price down, yada, yada. Well, first thing was we weren't the incumbent. We weren't serving it today, that day, and the company that was underserving it. They had received some funding, but they just didn't focus that funding on the rural areas. So we went in, we said, okay, we're going to put in a community center. We're going to offer free broadband in that community center. We're going to offer computers. We're going to put security on there, surveillance cameras. People will get a code like they're checking out a library book. They can go in and use the broadband for that area. We're bringing fiber to the homes. This is going to be great. We were down to the 9th hour, and all of a sudden, that other company decided to just hang fiber along the poles. They weren't even going to build it out right then. They hung fiber, and fiber wasn't going to deliver gigabit. They weren't going to deliver those speeds. They were going to deliver up to 25 meg. They were going to disperse that, and that's all the people were going to get. So that totally took us out of a multi-million-dollar investment in the community and offering that community fiber to the home, not just fiber to a PED and distributing it from there. And it was the official was trying to do the right thing, but now we can't ever go to that area because there is no ROI for it. And that's unfortunately that's the story for rural areas. It's why it's not built out. There is no, without additional funding and support, there's no ROI to do it. You can love it, you can want it, it can be the greatest thing, it's deep in your heart that you want to serve, but you can't go millions of dollars in the hole with no chance of ever breaking even. Anyway, I'm long-winded, I know, and I apologize for that, but I wanted to get, make sure you guys all understood where our thoughts and hearts are as well, and some of the obstacles that we face on a daily basis. National providers don't want us in there, and they will throw something out there to say, okay, look there's fiber right here. You're talking about serving this community and getting that grant, that state funds, those federal funds. We're here, and we've got proof. It's hanging. We're in the process of building it.
Ed Bob Acuff here. I thank you and Brent for being on the call this morning and for all the information. Recently, I saw a census.gov figure, and obviously it's making me, with what you have said, question that 26 million households in the U.S. are without broadband. 80% of those are in rural communities. So I would suspect that is going to be higher for two reasons. One, not everybody fills out a census form on what they have or what they don't have in their house. And number two, if they're designated as being served, they may not fall into that category. So we're probably looking at more families and more households than what is being projected. The second thing, I'm the first district commissioner, which is Stony Creek. Highway 91 runs right through my district and into Shady Valley in Johnson County. So I would presume that would be an access point for you all. And I would imagine that those commission districts that abut North Carolina would potentially be access points for you all.
Yeah, it's easier, certainly easier from there. Now we take we also look at partnerships with other companies where we lease other fiber from other companies to be able to serve. That's not a foreign model to us at all. What we would do is lease fiber from a company to get to a specific area, and then once our revenues build up and we're able to offset our costs, our preference is for us to own our network in its entirety. We control it. We're not subjected to any other variables, but that's not always the case. And for us, for speed of deployment to serve an area, a lot of times we will lease fiber from other companies. Electrical co-ops and electrical companies now, they're getting grants, they're getting funds, they're putting up more fiber. So we're able to utilize that, help their business model. The money stays local, so it's a win-win for everyone. We can get up and going faster. Brent may want to add to that, but when you mentioned the areas, Brent has an engineering background. Brent heads up all sales for Skyline, Skybest, and all everything that's under that umbrella. So, but that, coming out of Shady Valley depends on the area. The areas that are contiguous to us are definitely easier to serve.
Yeah, I'll just add that, Mr. Acuff, that does give us the ability to springboard from existing facilities. It's not always a sure thing because it all depends on where our core network is and how close it is to the edge of our service area. But there's so many. It gives us so many more options when it's contiguous to an area that we already serve, like Shady Valley. We actually have a fully functioning exchange in Shady Valley, right there at Shady Valley Elementary School.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a part of our core network for sure. That's way over in Shady. So yeah, that's definitely a good way to do that. One thing that I will want to reiterate is the cost of deploying fiber is in the neighborhood $35,000 to $40,000 and can stretch up to $75,000 and beyond, really, for a full deployment. That seems like a whole lot of money, but I've got to tell you, it disappears so quickly. So that's why funding from USDA and other federal sources is so important. The ARC funding, Appalachian Regional Commission, is a very good source of money, honestly, for a kickoff to a larger plan to get some serious funding, just because of the expense of the medium, which is fiber. It's just a very expensive medium. So it's got to be a combination of ARC funding and probably USDA funding if you really want to get some traction.
Well, I think it would be very helpful if you all provided us, as Ed indicated, with the roadmaps that you all have secured and been successful with in other counties. That would give us some idea of how to proceed. And certainly I'd love to hear Ken Ray's comments, because he's had lots of experience with USDA and ARC and other mechanisms as well.
There are some state grant funds that just became available that, Mayor, you were talking about the other night on our regular commission meeting.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, might be I recognized?
Absolutely.
It comes through due to the COVID-19, which everybody knows that. I've been talking with Mr. Ray several times, and there's like a $15 million grant out there. And the way I understand, which I'll get him to get on here in just a second, the deadline on it, we got to do something, by the deadline's like October the 8th. So we need to, if we're going to get with it, way I understand it, Mr. Henson and Mr. Keith, that you guys would apply for it. And he said he would help, which he's on. I'm not talk for him. I'll let him speak in just a second. But we've had several conversations, and I believe you guys can help make this happen. So I'll turn it over, if I could, Mr. Ray, please.
Yeah, this is Ken Ray with First Tennessee Development District, and our organization has worked on a few broadband grants in the last couple of years. The program that the mayor was referring to was the Tennessee Broadband Accessibility Grant, and we worked with Hancock County on that. That particular grant is the questions are very technical and are geared more toward the company. Where Carter County can be helpful is, one, you're already have passed the broadband ready community resolution. So that's something that was done a couple of years ago. And there's a couple of questions that deal with the economic conditions of the area, and that's something that can be helped with very easily. But I think the hardest part is going to be defining the area. The Tennessee Broadband Accessibility Grant, the one that's going to have $15 million available, it can be up to $2 million, and it can cover up to 50% of the cost. So that's how that particular program works. But it sounds like SkyBest does not have the poles in Carter County, so there have to be some type of arrangement or something there. the broadband maps that, are very much maligned because they're not very accurate, but still there's a lot of Carter County that is considered eligible even if you use those maps. But if you have some other areas, you can do a survey, but it takes a little bit of work, and there's some different ways to do that survey. Another program that we've worked with on a few projects has been the Appalachian Regional Commission Power Grants. And that particular grant is geared more, even though, Skyline would probably be the applicant because it has to be, a nonprofit entity. But even though they're the applicant, a lot of the work is something that I would do. Most of the questions are more community oriented, and we get more from the company is defining the area, writing up an engineering report. That one's a little more, it's more, I do more grant writing in that situation. And I really haven't worked with the USDA program very much. And there's another program we just submitted an application for, but yeah, it's kind of like what you mentioned, the water and sewer. Broadband's becoming the new water and sewer. So I'm seeing a lot more projects develop in those areas.
Yeah, the USDA, they have variations. They're trying to find the magic sauce, I guess, and that target keeps moving. They started out with a reconnect, one of the Community Connect grant. And that was, it was a matching portion and those sort of things. And they had a reconnect grant. And basically they kind of have, well, there's variations, but there's three models that they're looking at. One is, part of it is, there's a loan. It's just a loan, just straight up loan that you qualify for. Very easy to qualify for that money. Good terms. It's, but it is debt. Then there's another part that requires a 50% match. There's another one that requires about a 20%. And there's some assets and things that you have to look at there. They have programs. They're just seeing where the traction is, what works for everyone. We don't like to acquire too much debt. We're in an unpredictable time. So we're trying to do as good as we can there. So the larger portions of the grants that have the most funding that doesn't require as much capital outlay from us is certainly obviously more attractive. But we're open to those sort of things. We don't have, all the, we wish we could serve everyone. We really, really, really do. And that's our goal. And it's you wake up every morning and there's that mountain you want to climb and get after it because you know the need. It's the same story with everywhere you go. And it's lives that are impacted, and we're doing our best that we can with it. Again, we appreciate it's been a little while since you and I've talked, but I appreciate your support over in Johnson County as well, and some guidance that those guys, you've been able to provide to them along the way. So thanks for all that you guys do.
So, Ken, this is Bob Acuff. From your perspective, what are the next steps we need to be taking? What do we need to put together to push this further?
Yeah, from my perspective, you've got an opportunity with the broadband accessibility grant, October 8th. I think to get there, you're going to have to define an area or have some type of plan how you want to serve Carter County. And I think the other thing that's probably important is where will the fiber be placed and how do you work through that issue? I think those are two important things to consider.
Okay.
Chairman, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
So do we need to bring in the power company or a phone company? The phone company seems like it would be kind of dodgy, being as you guys would technically be kind of a competitor.
Yeah, I've worked on two projects where the electric entity was the applicant, so they already had the poles. The other project I worked on, they actually put it in the ground. I mean, there's different ways to approach it, and I'm just not sure what the best solution is, in your county.
Seems that it would be kind of a combination of all the above. Stony Creek and Roan Mountain, burying the cable is going to be pretty rough, right, Mr. Henson?
Yeah, it would be, but that's not unfamiliar to us at all. And in terms of reaching area, I mean, portions of it can be aerial, portions of it can be buried. We just have to do, again, our preference is to bury it, but when you look at partnering with power poles, or electrical companies, there's pole rental costs. Their legislation was passed. I think it was like House Bill 588 or something like that. They changed what they could do. There was a formula. Now it's passed. The national providers were able to lobby and get it passed where, yeah, the formula is still in place, but you don't have to use the formula. So basically you can charge anything you want per pole. You can change the rates when you want. So then we could build out, we could say, okay, this is what our cost is going to be. It includes the cost of materials, there's the construction, and here's what our ongoing costs are going to be. Our operational costs are going to be X amount per pole. Well, it was $7 a month per pole. Now it's going to go to $32 a month per pole because we need to have more revenue, and there's nothing that we can do. We've got fiber hung there, we're leasing it, we're in those contracts. We just have to pay it. Not saying that that's happened to us that dramatically. We have fantastic relationships with Blue Ridge Electric Cooperative. They're doing really, really good jobs. We've got thousands and thousands of poles with them. We have thousands and thousands of poles of our own, but we don't have any poles that we own in Carter County. So we would have to, to navigate that. That's all part of the puzzle. I will tell you that
with Mountain Electric Cooperative.
Yeah, we do have some with them. Yeah, we do have a relationship with those folks, and we do have that in. We don't have any in Elizabethton today. No, an area that has interest to us, but we haven't really. I've not spoken with anyone at Elizabethton. It's harder for me. Earlier on, we were going out and we were seeking. Now, it's everyone's coming after us, and we're trying to figure out, how can we help everyone, but we know that we can't help everyone at the same time. One thing to consider too, yes, we are a cooperative, but in certain areas, it depends on the grant, we are operating under our CLEC license as Sky Best Communications. And because we're, that's for those type services, and Sky Best is a for-profit. So certain grants says, okay, well, if your parent company, the operating company is a nonprofit, we'll go with that. And you just apply under Skyline Membership Corporation. So other areas says, no, if this is not your business and you're not serving here today and you're not a cooperative in this county or in this footprint today, then you're just like everybody else. You're just operating on your CLEC license. That's what you have to apply for, therefore disqualifying you for those loans or grants. And that's where you have to find, running through chamber is a very odd model, because really you're just using that tax ID or that status to do it. It's a loophole. I wish there were a better way to do that, but you've got people who are involved with, economic development and, representing businesses. That's just not what they're creative for. But it's some of the hoops we have to jump through right now to try to make something happen. We're open to all of those things. We certainly are. I can't make any promises on this call to anyone other than that we will certainly look at it and we can evaluate it. And again, our mission is to serve, plain and simple.
Mr. Chair, Brad Johnson. Chairman Acuff, Brad Johnson.
Yes, sir. You're recognized.
I have a question toward Mr. Henson. It's been stated that we have access out of, well, I'm going to say your facilities is in Shady Valley. But I know between Shady Valley and coming down through our eastern part of the county at Stony Creek, the lack of utility poles up near the top of the mountain, so forth, for that, which is about puts it out of question. But the other avenue in, where are you from Mountain City going into Butler? Do you have anything coming down that way?
No, that was an area that we looked at one time. We were in the process of applying for a grant. Unfortunately, that's a CenturyLink served area. They received Connect America funds for that. So that's more of their obligation for those guys to serve. I can't get any money for that area because they're there.
Okay, what I'm looking at is the points of entry in geographically around our county to which we can come in. Of course, I feel pretty confident we kept from the Rome Mountain side. I'm hesitant about the Stony Creek Cross Mountain hooking up with the Shady Valley because of the expense that's going to be. With that, once we determine the route and give a plan, geographical plan of its entry, in I'm going to say the token ring for the county, then we as a county need to have information of all of our, I'm going to say our connectivity for our, in essence, our hollows, our valleys that goes through that we're going to branch off of. But we need more or less a good knowledge and survey of what the customer is going to be. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I think what you know Mike alluded to about John Welch's the survey that he did from Watauga County. It outlines a lot of that in there as well. That's a good template to use. If anybody needs that, I can certainly get that to you. Several of you, Mayor and Mike, both have our contact information. Looking at the Alexander and Polk, there's some good information in there. To gather that quickly, it is easier to get someone, it does cost, but to get a firm that says, hey, we've done this in 20 counties, and here's what we found, and here's what providers are looking for, they'll have more updated information. I think the one from Watauga was 2017. One at Alexander was 2018, I think. But there's a lot of it's still very relevant, but there are some nuances in there that someone that's their business, they're able to get you up to speed faster. And with that deadline in October looming out there, they're going to be talking to more people than we are actually. So
okay,
that's their business.
Too, it looks like it maybe a portion of the survey too would be available or can be obtained through our education department. Mr. McLean, I know there's other jurisdictions and all have surveys that went out to families about obtaining information of connectivity or everything else for virtual access and computer use for these children. Of course, I know that would be a very strong point in when we're applying. Is that not correct, Mr. Hanson?
Very true. Very true. Yes, sir.
Okay. To the Chairman Nakup, do we know if the schools have put out a survey of such to where we can tap onto it, or if they're in the process of it?
We can certainly check. Mr. McLean may know better than I do.
I will add, we have sent out multiple surveys, Mr. Johnson, to be honest with you, and we've got a lot of responses. But the one thing we need to keep in mind, we are sending out surveys through the internet and through things like that. So we're not getting back a lot of information from those that do not have good internet access.
Well, that's understandable, right? But that's what I say. If you have a good base to it to where we can pick up with it, figure out how we're going to pick up with it and go on and get the base information for our customers and for the children.
We absolutely have a good base as far as a start for the survey.
Okay.
That's a good news story.
I'm sorry.
Chairman, I think for the rest of us, we know where the pockets are in our own districts. I think we print off a few thousand of these things and go do a little door to door if we have to.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, in thinking about in that line of what Commissioner Hill mentions there, just keep thought, and I thought about it, and that's what's dangerous sometimes. You know, you can walk out the road and it'll blow up on you. But if it comes down to push to be shoved, that we could do a mail out questionnaire in certain areas. Our source of information would be possibly gaining addresses of families that's involved in the education of children in schools where they live, that we can send a questionnaire with return envelopes, if nothing else, where, you know, we're going to make it easy to them, except drive to the house and put it in the mailbox for them.
Right.
That may be a quick source, and again, it may not. It might, you know, it may cost too much. I'm not sure about it.
Some ways that we've gathered the information, it is difficult. To Mr. McLean's point, we've utilized the school sending letters home with the kids. Come back, don't come back. You know, that stuff. We've put in obviously in the newspaper and print. We've done it with social media, and you know, you only get fractions. You're only going to get so much information. That's what's a little bit frustrating about it. We also did door-to-door campaigns, and we really don't. That's a tough thing to do right now with the COVID virus going on. Does someone want to go to someone else's house to fill out a survey, and does someone want someone coming to their door to fill out a survey? That's an additional obstacle that we didn't have last year or the years before, and we got a lot of information. One specific area, we went 700 plus doors we knocked on to get information. So we were really boots on the ground getting after this thing to try to serve a community, which that's a tough one right now. You know.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I have in my hand here, Mr. Hill gave this out at the meeting the other night. It's a pretty good, that's a kind of a not pretty good survey. Mr. Hill, did you hand this out?
Yeah, I was actually trying to look for that file. I've had a couple of requests for it just now.
Well, I've got it.
That is basically Watauga County Commissioner John Welch's survey with all the Watauga relevant information changed to Carter, and instead of their county manager's office, it's your office that I replaced the phone numbers and such with.
That's great. Okay. I'd be glad to help out on this. I got one other thing. I got a friend that works for Bright Ridge, and he mentioned something about satellite. Is that feasible? Anything like that feasible? Satellite coverage or?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a technology that you can use to receive. I mean, it's very susceptible, as you can imagine, to the elements, to, you know, storms, those sort of things. It is a Band-Aid. I mean, it just is. It's not. It's usually. I mean, a national provider, HughesNet, is one they're super expensive, exponentially larger cost, and the service is not guaranteed and it's small. It is better than nothing. So if it's an opportunity, you can do that. A lot of the folks who are offering grants now are saying, okay, we're not going to. They put a point system in place. So if you can offer fixed, or if you can offer satellite, or if you can offer DSL, you know, all these get a certain amount of points. If you're a gig provider like we are, nationally certified gig provider, you get the maximum points in that category. So that enables us to, one, make sure a community can at least get served, but two, if it's going to get served, let it get served the right way. We call it the right way. I'm biased, but it's hard to argue fiber against dial-up or DSL. There's no argument there. But yeah, so that satellite is an option, like fixed wireless, similar technologies. There's a lot of little different things out there. Just trying to find some service for folks. Hotspots on the cell phone, you know, those devices can work for you as well. At one time, they were leaning towards, well, if there's cell coverage in the area and you can pick up over 10 meg, then that area is served. So a lot of groups have backed off of that and said, look, yeah, that may be true, but that's not what's going to be needed. You know, you don't want someone that's willing to serve an area and willing to put up hundreds of thousands of dollars from a company like ours. We're willing to put that into $1 million into an area and get grant support, we don't want them to not do that because their cell phone works in part of the county. That does work. That's just not really fixing the problem.
Okay.
Edward, if they were to accept satellite coverage, or satellite service to fit the bill, would that disqualify them like fixed wireless does from grant monies?
It depends on the grant. It could. In the earlier days with USDA, it would 100% block you. They've gotten a lot better with that. USDA folks are really opened their eyes to saying, okay, we're in the business to give this money out and support. Let's remove some of the variables. And in the past, that's where, when this money gets created and appropriated, we're only so big of a company. We can't spend the money lobbying as much as a national provider can, where you have teams and teams of people. That's their full-time job, spending time with the legislators and convincing them why the policies need to be written this way or why funding qualifications need to be written like this. Usually it's written to keep out companies like ours from impeding on their investment. So their reporting still continue to retain the customers that they spent money to get, and make money on that. So,
really a short-term and a long-term strategy should probably be evaluated with the understanding that you don't want to sell yourself short for, hey, in 5 years' time or in 10 years' time, where do you hope to be? And if you've disqualified yourself from serious USDA money, that's something to take into consideration. I mean, speed to market versus long-term viability. Yeah. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I'm just bringing that up.
What's really cool for us, it's working out, is that there's so much pressure being put at the federal level and even at the state level too on broadband. People are holding the elected officials more accountable to say, got to have the broadband. Why would you do that? And we could have had this, but you did this, kind of thing. We need the service, but there's a lot more accountability. So that's a good thing for all of us on this call. I know a lot of elected officials here, and certainly I know you're feeling it. I mean, how many days a week go by that you're not talking about broadband? Probably not many, if any at all. So you want to do the right thing, and that's helping us all. The restrictions are getting relaxed. The accountability needs to be there. But the qualifying for, when you've got groups like yours, like the counties that you're representing, and districts that you're representing here, gosh, you need the funding. And you need, you need to remove those variables to get that money. So
we don't want to do anything to jeopardize, our funding, but that's just something I wanted to throw out because it was brought to mind.
That's where it helps to have that consultant in place who's doing these things and says, hey, make sure that you're not, you got all these provider meetings that you put together, and you've got a fixed wireless, you've got a satellite company, and you've got a company like ours in there, and you got a national player. How do you navigate this so that you don't, cut off your nose to spite your face kind of thing? You've fixed a simple problem for today, but now you're stuck there.
That's where Mr. Ray comes in. That's who I call all the time.
Yeah, I was going to mention that the Tennessee Broadband Accessibility Grant, the $15 million the state has, for-profits and nonprofits are eligible for that one. So there's definitely no issue there. They also have some guidelines about how to do a study. In Unicoi County, we had a group called Connected Nation come in and do a study. I mean, there's different ways to do it. I think it can be done, like you mentioned, the door-to-door or whatever. But I may want to send you the guidelines on how they want that survey done. That might help you a little bit. But I would encourage you, October 8th is not that far away, but, try to move that direction toward developing an application.
So, some applications require that you have a blueprint and that it's a PE certified engineering plan. That takes time as well. It's a lot to it. There really is. So just some things to keep in mind. That's great information, Ken. And Tennessee is doing a really good job of removing those variables. That's one example, about a nonprofit versus profit. It's about, hey, how can we serve? Let's not get in the way of providers who are wanting to bring the service our community needs.
Yeah. Okay, we've been at this about almost an hour and a half, and I know everybody's time is precious. We will put this back on the agenda, top of the agenda for the Health and Welfare meeting on August 4th. And Ken, if you could join us at that meeting, that would be very helpful in helping us determine the strategy so we can move ahead. Edward, Brent, thank you both, but let me ask, I know you can put anything over fiber. How much telemedicine, before we get off the call here, how much telemedicine do you all think you're doing? Activities where rural citizens use broadband to have a in-person visit with a physician or another healthcare provider?
Well, the numbers on, whether it's local or whether it's national providers that are like Teladoc and those sort of things, that's growing exponentially.
Right.
As far as our network, it depends on the provider and those services. Teladoc's a service that kind of generically can fit in what you're looking for, and they partner you with the right kind of specialist or physician. But as far as, a Ballot Health or something like that may be in your area, that's up to the services that they offer. It's challenging. I mean, it fits the model right now, especially in this time of COVID. It makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. It makes more sense now than ever. Aside from the transportation cost and, the accessibility and all those sort of things that go along with it, it makes much more sense. So I see that, its potential to grow exponentially, and it is. I mean, if you look at those companies, they're growing like wildfire. But it goes back to, again, the connectivity, if it's there or not. So I don't have a definitive answer of what percentage of our network traffic is on, is being utilized through telemedicine, but it's growing.
I can add, Mr. Acuff, that our network in our areas that we serve currently is more than capable of providing the bandwidth for that type of setup. The ultimate telemedicine setup is one that you can share, both telemetry type information and, very high definition video. For us, that's not an issue. One advantage that we have with fiber is all of our broadband connections are symmetrical, starting at just something for, some equipment like a water tank or whatever, like 5 meg by 5 meg up to 1,000 meg, which is a gigabit by gigabit. That's symmetrical, same upstream as you get downstream. With that kind of capacity, the sky's the limit. I mean, it's just about impossible to stress a gigabit circuit unless you have a large group of people, like in the school system or something like that. For a home, it's just about impossible to even use a portion of a gigabit of service. So if that gives you an idea, the capacity's there. It's all up to Teladoc and other healthcare providers to use it. Really, it's there.
Yeah. Well, certainly we have advantage because Medicare and Medicaid now will reimburse, as well as other private insurers. We're using it at the College of Medicine to make sure that, obviously, in this environment, that people can actually see face-to-face their provider and have some interaction. So it would be another plus, and as you all indicate, it's certainly on the rise in rural communities if they can gain access.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
There are grants out there too, and that are specifically for telemedicine. So if that can help support building infrastructure, then and it includes fiber from point A to point B, and it's built correctly, you can serve everything in between. When you've really paid for from here to here to provide that connection, that's paid for with telemedicine money or something like that, but then you serve everybody that's in between as well.
That's good to know.
So
yeah. Any other last minute points or questions before we close this out? I know everybody's got things they need to do, and we've been at it an hour and a half.
I just want to thank you guys, Edward and Brent, for doing this with us this morning. I think this is probably the solidest footing we've had on this since 2015 when we first started trying to push for it. And thanks for everybody for taking a Friday morning to be interested in this. But guys, thank you so much for being willing to coach, and I'm sure we'll be looking to you for some tutelage coming up really soon.
And also, thanks to Amanda Scalf for working with the mayor's office and with the commission to get this up and going. We really appreciate her services, particularly today and on everything else she's doing. So thank you, Amanda, if you're on.
You're most welcome.
So if there's nothing else,
thanks for having us.
say goodbye. Thank you all again. We'll continue the discussion at the Health and Welfare Department. Committee.
Have a good day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.